What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Lost Records Journal, Player One vs. was Lost Records Bloom and Rage focused podcast, even Lost Records focused podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adnan. My co-host Adam is here. Adam, you here?
I'm here, and I keep forgetting to erase my whiteboard because that album's been out for a while, and it's there.
Yeah, leaking behind the scenes details of you on your work.
My roadmap, yeah.
The roadmap. Yeah, but on the roadmap, if anything, you are back on this podcast because obviously Jace filled in for you last time, which again, thank you, Jace, for filling in that. It was nice to have a Life is Strange fans perspective, but we are back with Adam Evil, who's taking his co-host chair, and we're obviously back for another episode. Lost Records Journals are now a bi-weekly podcast, as we've talked about before, even though the game is delayed till 2025, but we are here to provide you with all the content about Lost Records. So before we start, if anything, if you are new here, please do consider dropping a subscribe on the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share with your friends, help support a very small channel. If anything, we just hit 1,200 subscribers, so please do support us if you can. And also as well, Strangecast as well. We also have Strangecast as well, which is our Life is Strange fan podcast. It also covers Don't Nod news, covers Deck 9 news, covers a lot of things. That's also available on our channel as well. And both those podcasts are available on all podcast services, including Spotify. With the video version, we're available on Apple Podcasts. We're available on everything, so you can go and check the episodes out, download them. We've just hit 42 followers on the Lost Records Journal, so thank you very much on Spotify. That's really appreciated. And we also have 7 ratings on there, so thank you so much. That's 7 5-star ratings as well, which is great. So thank you again for all the support. It's very important to us as a small independent channel as it is. But Adam, we're back
and
here.
I'm a small guy too. I'm only 5 foot.
Yeah, and crush your NBA dreams as well. That's why you never get into the NBA.
Hey, Nate Robinson won a dunk contest in the NBA, and he's only 5'0". Now I don't know. I think he's 5'6". Pretty sure. Nate Robinson. Yeah.
Well, Kobe Bryant was a big player anyway, so like you can dream big, kids, even if you are small. But But if anything, yeah, we're back for this episode. Obviously, I'm in a little bit of a different layout, if you're wondering. I've commuted to see my brother. I'm in his office at the minute, so we're recording from there, but the show always goes on. And speaking of which, for this episode, I think, Adam, coincidentally enough, I was actually going to suggest we talk about Velvet Cove, if anything, because we kind of alluded to it.
Whoa. I didn't know that going into the show.
Oh, no, you didn't know. He never knows anything. He never knows.
I just arrive.
I might actually start doing that and not send you anything. Be like, right, we're just going to start a podcast. No, but we were talking about this recently. Actually, we were saying like a couple of episodes ago when we might actually like talk about Velvet Cove as a topic.
Mm-hmm.
But we've now kind of got to this point where we're going to do it actually as a topic because I think some of the news has alluded to that, if anything. So yeah, we were going to talk about Velvet Cove, and coincidentally enough, we've seen a couple of posts from the Lost Records social media accounts tweeting. A postcard was one that they've tweeted. They've tweeted a little clip which shows footage of the environment. So I kind of want to talk to Adam about Velvet Cove, if anything, because that's going to be our main focus point for the first entry of this Lost Records universe. And I think, if anything, a very early prediction from me, Adam, if anything, is that this will be hopefully our like next level Arcadia Bay, if anything. I think like obviously it's a quick comparison to make because obviously Michel, Luke, and the Don't Nod Montreal team, the developers who worked on Life is Strange 1 and 2 who are there. But I think like they are really positioning Velvet Cove to be this like Arcadia Bay-esque spiritual successor, but has its own identity because it is steeped in 90s culture. Hopefully we see a futuristic version because when the characters reunite as well. I know that the main part of the game focuses on the 90s, if anything. But I was kind of curious, like, what do you really want to see in this town, if anything? Because we've seen landmarks so far. We've seen the skateboard references. I assume that's a skateboard reference for you, if anything. They know Adam loves it. Luke has played Ollie Ollie World because of you. But I think I was just wondering, like, what do you think so far of the town? Because I expect it to be quite limited in terms of like the scale. Because obviously it's not going to be like a massive massive exploration, but I'm just kind of curious, like what are you hoping to see so far, and obviously after the video that we saw so far as well.
I think that's one, we have to keep it in perspective that Michel Koch leads good design. He leads good level design. He leads good setting design. Because if we're going off of the two teams that did Life is Strange, that being Deck 9 and Don't Nod, let's do a comparison here. Like, what worlds did you find yourselves just getting lost in? Don't Nod's Life is Strange or Deck 9's, right? Because even with Deck 9, it was part of Michel's world that he created, and even True Colors, you couldn't really get lost in that world because it was an L. It was just this one L. Whereas what I want to see in this, to answer your question, is a lot of Michel's touches, which is things like details that we don't see for 10 years. Like there's certain parts in Life is Strange and Life is Strange 2, right, that like you go back to the game and you're just like, wow, I completely missed that in the first 5 playthroughs that I did. There's like certain things in his design that he hides and he strategically places that it takes more than one playthrough to really appreciate. So I think he's really good at that. That like, yes, you can appreciate it with your first playthrough, but if you wanted to play it, you know, you for 5 more times, there are interactions, there are characters, there are collectibles that you can explore and like have your time with the game. So I just want to see Michel's touches in that.
I'm hoping that we see Kate Marsh on the water tower. We've always seen the footage.
Yeah,
that'll be like
she's a time traveler now.
Yeah, well, 10 years later, we all notice it's like, hang on a minute, was Kate Marsh on that rooftop? It's like, you know, no one saw her, but then we see her on the water tower, and it's like, hang on a minute, Michel, what are you doing here? It's like, why is Nora on that rooftop? It's like we never saw her 10 years later.
That's what I mean. Like Michel's very good at that, like in leading a design in that way, where like this is a small game. Like Life is Strange is not meant to be a world exploring game. It's not meant to be open world, but it has open world feel where there are little things that we all miss, and Michel's good at that. Like he's very good at leading that design. So I want that in this world. I want to explore this world, you know?
And you know what, as well, when you say about Michel, one of the things I noticed, which was now I deeply admire more, if anything else, is when he talked about Life is Strange 2, and he talked about the setting being a story in itself, and also because he's got a background as an artist, as you kind of alluded to, he's got a very big thing with lighting, which obviously, like myself, I'm a big Kojima fanboy as it is, and he really admires lighting. But it's like with Michel as well, he admires lighting. So you see it with in the picture, the video that we saw, and it was like the forest, the kind of like the water tower, anything that's been shown so far is like visually lighting strikes it really nice. And it creates this kind of like homey thing. Even with the first Life is Strange Arcadia Bay, the juxtaposition you'd see where you jump between different hubs, very quite bright here and there. You'd go into the dark room, for example. You'd kind of like go to the beach or like near the beach with the Two Whales Diner. There's quite like a nice, like he's got a really good balance. It's like everything's got a nice color palette, if anything. And I'm trying not to be pseudo intellectual the way that I kind of approach, because I have no artistic background, if anything. But I admire when I look at my settings and they create beautiful stories, which is what Lost Records is doing at the minute, because we have very bare bones details, and I like that as well because I want to go with the mystery. I think that's the mystery of Lost Records. We have a very great setup, a great kind of pretense of what the game's going to be about, but it's like it's all steeped in mystery. So we see like great little references here and there, and obviously with Velvet Cove as well. I'm kind of hoping that, as you said, like you kind of alluded to again, it's not like the L-shaped town, which is like True Colors, because that's a good idea. It works in itself for True Colors, but it's quite bare bones at times, because once you've kind of traveled down the street once and you've picked up 1 or 2 references, it doesn't really change.
There's not much to explore in that. It's just kind of like a one trick pony.
Yeah, and also like One Trick Pony works well in certain circumstances. So like I've played Yakuza series, you picked up one of the Yakuza games, which you'll get into at some point. But it's like a lot of those games in Kamurocho, which is the main setting in Japan, it's like you'll see when you played one game, it's pretty much like a lot of it's reskinned. So it's like the same mini games and etc. But it gives you any time you can basically go into any shop and kind of do things. So like the first game, they've set up so much and added here and there little details. But you have reason to kind of explore the area. So I think like with Velvet Cove, I'm not expecting it to be a massive game. Again, we're in a scope of a double A game, which is self-published by Don't Nod, developed by Don't Nod. So what I'm kind of expecting, if anything, is like centralized hubs, which I think is what's going to happen. The same with Life is Strange 1, maybe Life is Strange 2 as well, where it's like we travel to locations. Velvet Cove is going to be quite big. I think it might even be like a little bit in terms of like, if you're thinking imagination wise, like The Simpsons or like South Park, when you think about the town, it's like it can go anywhere. We don't have a map. It's not like drawn out. So you can basically create things where you need to. This exists. It's like you don't get a specific address for Swan's house. Hopefully not. Like, you know, it's like you just have like a house there, but then you can kind of expand into that universe. I think that's what's going to really work for them. So obviously I think like from what we can tell so far, it'll be like that entire area where you have like the donut or ice cream. Is it donut truck? I think it's like the donut truck we have there. We have like a donut truck where the skate park is. We have like a
Yeah.
diner that's kind of been shown-ish. We've seen like a movie palace. We've seen like obviously all the 90s jazz, which is what we kind of need for this game, if anything.
Well, again, that goes into his design, where it's just like you kind of associate Life is Strange with the Two Whales Diner. You know, you associate it with the Blackwell Academy. You know, there are specific landmarks that Michel is very good at putting in and making a landmark in a game. Whereas again, with Deck 9, with True Colors, name me one shop, you know, besides, you know, the bar.
Rocky Mountain Traders, yeah, that's the only one really.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Traders, you know, and you have, what's the bar called in True Colors?
Oh, is it the Black Lantern? I think it's called the Black Lantern.
Yeah, it's like, but these aren't landmarks, they're just settings. Whereas he's very good at making it. There's a difference between making a building and making a landmark. You know, there's one thing to, you know, put in a house, and it's another thing to put in a Mount Rushmore. It's another thing to put in, you know, a random pub, and then there's Big Ben, you know. And I think he's very good at making a landmark in the game, and we saw that. We saw it with the donut shop, like you said. We saw it with the skate park. We saw it with the water tower. There's a Velvet Cove water tower with antlers. Like that's a landmark, and he's very good at it. And when you were saying about how Michel is has his background in being an artist, that's what made I'm going to go on a tangent here.
No,
but you know, sue me. But that's what made Godzilla -1 such a fantastic movie, is because the director has a background in CGI. He has a background in that sort of design, which is what made Godzilla so grandeur, because he has the understanding of what makes graphics and CGI good. So it's that background that made that movie so good. Same thing with Life is Strange, and same thing with Lost Records. Not hopefully, what will make Lost Records really good is Michel's background in art, you know. So I appreciate that he knows what a landmark is, and that you can identify something by that.
But I think you're right about it, because like, if anything else as well, he's creating a universe, and obviously, and I'm including Michel as like the lead figure because he is the creative director, but also has this very talented development team underneath him, like the ones who are creating this really wonderful universe with the characters. I think that what you're saying is great as well, because like in itself, he's creating this universe which is obviously steeped in the 1990s for the time being, if anything, where like the main part of the story is going to take place. But as you said, it's the landmarks which are great, and obviously, again, like I mentioned earlier, The Simpsons, how many landmarks are in there, like the power plant, the quick, you know, even the Quickie Mart, which is a convenience store, it's still a landmark. Same with Moe's Tavern, all the things, even Springfield Central Hall, all these like a landmark.
That's what made Simpsons Hit and Run so great, because you go into this world and you're like, oh, I know that from the show. Oh, I know this from the show, and because it's a landmark, not just a building. And I think there's such a good artistry behind that, like you said. Or even South Park, you know, there's landmarks in that. There's I can't even think of a landmark. You're more of a South Park fan than I am.
Like the elementary school, for example.
Yeah, the elementary school. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. But it's like, even when you talk about that with Simpsons, you go and hit and run and you kind of play it. That map is like shaped out because the developers have to make it, because they're not all like centralized in a certain spot. They've kept the universe quite open. The Simpsons kept all these landmarks and like developed it over time. And I think that's what he's doing with Lost Records, which is, again, the great thing of a creative developer, of a creative mind, because you kind of sit there thinking like he's thinking ahead, because like we already know the series is being greenlit from Don't Nod, being like, we have a Lost Records universe, and whether they continue with Velvet Cove or not, that's a different thing. But it's the evolution of something where you already are thinking long term, the vision, the stories you can tell in this universe. And I think that's the thing that people really want, if anything. I think that's maybe something that maybe people didn't really connect with Life is Strange 2 as much, because you were moving so much. Because like obviously different story, different dynamic, and I love Life is Strange 2. I've spoken about it as well, but it's like it's a story about traveling that. But it's like with Arcadia Bay, it was that centralized hub. You go to Chloe's house, you go to the school, you go to the dark room, you go to the Whales Diner, you go to all these different landmark locations, and in there, there's an immersiveness, there's a little bit of a secret, there's a bit of cryptic kind of like detail that's been hidden there, things people pick up on. That's the admiration for it, and I think that's what I think that's, for example, again, I don't really want to keep bringing Life is Strange in here, but it's a good reference point. Is, for example, when we've been talking about double exposure on like the Strangecast podcast, and we've been quite, I'm very much on the fence. Adam's quite cutthroat about things, but it's like fair point to be cutthroat with it, because it's like, will Caledon University really be like that? Is that just the central hub then, double exposure? Can they really replicate what Michel does? No, they can't, because the Deck 9 team is very talented as it is. And you kind of really opened my eyes up to the conversation we had in Strangecast, where you were talking about, your Cliffy B's, your Hideo Kojima's, your Michel Koch's, different bread and butter. Some people think so differently outside the box, even yourself as well. Like we've talked about it, where we talk about musicians, and you've been like, I want to create my music, even if it's as weird and whatever kind of sounding noise it is, compared to doing what everyone else does. And it's like, you have to have a deep admiration for someone who's going to put themselves out there in a different kind of way. So I think like with that, I look at like Velvet Cove, and I'm thinking like, you have so many great points in here, because obviously, it'll be quite linear in terms of like certain places you visit. So for example, like Swan's house will just be Swan's house, but we'll get all the nuanced details, the nice environment, you'll get the great lighting, but then you'll get even more great lighting when you go into the forest, because obviously there's a big like mention that we've seen in the early trailers from that. It's like something happens there, and then you see like a playground, and it's like it becomes quite staticky and alien-esque, and as well, like almost that sci-fi element with it. And again, the visuals change. Everything has that, and I think that's the overarching thing I find very quite enticing about Lost Records so far. Is that story is going to be very much told through its environment, and I think that's why they're putting such an emphasis on Velvet Cove, because we're recording the 20th of July, and this week we've had a postcard, we've had a video clip. They want you to admire the environment, and that is like, and that's a big part of it. You're in a story-driven game, you enjoy it. Oxenfree, you recommended it to me. Great location, great place to go and visit. You get immersed.
Another good one, because like if you play Oxenfree 2, and then you see Edwards Island from the cliffside, you're like, oh, I know that. I know Hardin Tower over there. I know this. I know that. There's landmarks. It's that recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
same with Life is Strange 2. When you see Arcadia Bay in the first episode, you're like,
yeah.
It adds that feel to it, and I think he wants to make it a home. That's why I think I'm very excited, because like, obviously I hope we see like little things in there, because like for me, the expectation is the evolution of what they do, because they did great stuff in Life is Strange 1. Okay, so we're going to pick up back off here. We've had a little bit of tech issues, so hopefully I'm hoping to God nothing's happened here. We never seem to have a good run at the minute with podcast services at the moment. But Adam, I kind of wanted to ask you as well with actual Velvet Cove, if anything, because we know that they're really great storytellers, if anything, Michel, the creative team at Don't Nod Montreal, and they've got that nailed down, especially with the first two Life is Strange games, if anything. But I'm just curious, do you think we might see a bit more in terms of just like an evolution of Velvet Cove, where I'm not saying that you like go out there, get into a car with Swan Holloway and start running people over like GTA style. But I'm talking like, when we go to like a certain location, there might be a bit more mini games or certain things that kind of like endear people, because we had it with shades of certain things. So obviously it's kind of interwoven in the story. I think there's like the one with Captain Spirit.
I can guarantee you there's going to be a quarter-based arcade machine that we can play, like almost like a Space Invaders kind of thing. But in the same vein as we got Hot Dog Man in Captain Spirit. So like I guarantee we're gonna have like a mini game kind of like that we're all gonna be like, can we just get a separate game like this?
Do you know what as well? It's gonna make me feel so old when we do that.
Yeah,
I just can't like. It's like that's the thing with this game as well, because obviously like Michel and Luca are still very, very, very young. I should add it here as well, but they're like, we're part of their ilk, their generation. They're making it for people like us. We're going through that era, and they've kind of alluded to that in the interviews. But man, when they start using things like they use that skateboard, and so it's like an ancient relic. It's like being and you obviously love like skateboards. You still like have.
I was about to say skateboarding is not a relic anymore.
No, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to Gen Alpha, Gen Z, like they're going to be looking at Adam being like, "You are." Like
now, here's a real relic for Gen Z, not just a skateboard, but a Walkman, a cassette Walkman, and also just a camera, like a click camera.
Yeah, they don't even do that either. They do that.
Exactly. They go pick, pick. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's awful, dude.
Do you know what as well? Because it's funny when you say even the Walkman, like, because I remember when Kojima was making MGS5, he had like the Walkman out. You'd like post a photo of him like listening to it, which was quite a nice like touch because it's in the game.
Yeah.
But it's like that's even more dated because even for us, what would be a relic would be like an iPod Touch, an iPod Nano, because younger kids haven't even touched. Yeah, can you see your face now? It's
You
true.
know what's funny? I'm saying it the first time on the podcast here, but I'm in the process of going back to an iPod.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna cancel like my streaming services and go back to an iPod. That's a discussion for probably a strange cast because that's a longer. But yeah, I watched a few videos and I'm just like, you know what? We had it right back in the day. We had it right. It was peak, you know. But yeah, you were saying?
No, that Steve Jobs iPod Nano, iPod Touch were like the evolutions of where music should have stayed and evolved, and that was like the peak of it. And obviously, kids don't
that's
have
the thing.
it now.
Steve Jobs believed in like supporting artists in that way, and then once Steve Jobs left, it's like, so streaming music now, so we screw the artists now. And it's like, great, thank you. So
I find it really interesting though, because obviously we will base this off experiences, and in itself as well, like Michel and Luc are from French-based backgrounds, so they obviously have like a lot of American influences coming into their work, as we've seen with Twin Peaks and stuff, the development teams that they have on there. But it's like, I'm curious as well, like if you're a younger person, because obviously this will be targeted to young people as well, who are in the 16s and 15s and stuff. Like I always say to people and I have a conversation, I'm like, the world is such a different place now. It's so, like, it feels so different since 2008, like in a way that most people will never, ever be able to comprehend unless you really start reminiscing on it, or unless you live that environment. And I kind of sit there thinking like, Velvet Cove is reminiscent of a world that is a bygone era, and it's a new world as well, which is like the scary part of it. And I wonder what's going to happen when people see all those references, because as you said, the Walkman's one, like I would have loved to see like a Talk Boy thing. If anything, Talk Boy reminds me of Home Alone. It's like doing that reference. And we've seen certain things so far in the Velvet Cove world, which makes me feel quite dated, but I'm really curious about when we explore more so than the mini games, even the overarching story, all the references we get put in there, because like that's going to be, I think they're going to put something there. I'm going to be like, I'm like, holy hell, I'm old. I'm like, oh my God, you just made me feel anciently old.
They're going to put a Tab soda in it.
Yeah, my favorite one's when you see it like online, it's always like a TikTok video of like Coke being made with a float. It's like, this is how they make old school Coke now in like one diner. It's like, that's how Coke's always made now. It's like, to just put soda in it, it's syrup mix. It's like, come on. It's like, it's not.
Oh man, I hate this generation, dude.
Yeah,
it's awful.
No, but it's an interesting one. I'm excited for it. And I think we're going to come to the end as well. I think these podcasts are going to be a little bit shorter in between. We always keep the Lost Records Journal an hour less, if anything, time space wise as well. And we've obviously got the game pushed back to 2025, which is a shame, but obviously still very excited. It makes sense for them to push it back to 2025. And we've got plenty of conversations to be had. But Adam, two things before we go. Yeah. Two big questions I have to ask you here. Early prediction. Yeah. They know, we know they love Easter eggs. Yeah. We know the little Easter eggs. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What are some of the games you think might be early Easter eggs that we get a reference towards in this game? And you're very much well versed with the Don't Nod stuff, if anything, because remember as well, Tell Me Why was a different development team, but they did have a Life is Strange reference in there.
Yes, they did.
So I'm curious, like, what games you might think, and even some games that they might have played, because if Elden Ring reference is made, it wouldn't surprise me because Michel loves Elden Ring.
Yeah, I was going to say Elden Ring has to be one of the references, but that's going to be a hard reference to put in. There's going to be Life is Strange references. That's a given. That's straight up a given. Like whether it be, what's that?
2 or 1.
Honestly, I think it's going to be more than 2.
Yeah, I
think so. I think there might be like a lighthouse. I think there might be like a blue butterfly somewhere. It's like little nod, like here and there.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. A little nod from Don't Nod. In terms of games, like I would love to see an Ollie Ollie World reference. I would love to see that, but I don't think that they will be. But I think Elden Ring is a good call. I think we've already seen an Oxenfree reference from them. We definitely have.
Because there's a Last of Us reference in Life is Strange 2 as well, if you remember, where Daniel does the clicking noise.
Yes. Yeah. Man, what are like iconic games have come out recently?
So my kind of thing at the minute is I think I agree with you with Life is Strange 2. I think that would be a very nice reference for them to put in some way, shape, or form. Or even Captain Spirit as well. Like if there's like a reference to Chris or some kind of capacity. So I think
like Power Bear will be in here.
Which would be like, you know, even if it's like just obviously because we know we have IP royalty issues. I think like if you can get something away with it, so even if it's like a wolf signia or a butterfly, like as you said, there's references there. So I think more so Life is Strange 2, I'd love to see as a reference if it's in the game. If not like a Life is Strange 1 in there. I'd love for Castor Garden to be sprayed on the wall somewhere and graffiti.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be fucking wild.
Which would be really cool. But I think like in itself, I think like Elden Ring might be one because it's something that I see Michel play a lot as well. And we do like, you know, watch what he does as activities, if anything. But no, Elden Ring could be one. But I think also as well, I have a funny feeling that maybe Jusant is a reference in there. Out of the mainstream ones that they've done so far, I don't know what it is. Jusant gravitates to me because Harmony is a bit different in terms of like the graphic novel profile flavor, and then Banishes is a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like how they can reference it because like
even that little toy that he has on his like shoulder.
That's a living person. What are you talking about? Toy? That's a living creature. Have you not played Jusant?
No, I haven't yet. It's too much shit. I'm ordering the PS5 versions.
Yeah, the PS5 version. I don't remember if it had a name. There's no dialogue in this. There's no narration. It's all just written lore. So I don't think it's called anything. It could be in the lore, and I just can't remember.
You're getting caught out by Dream Prison now.
Yeah, exactly. I am not good at reading lore in games. You know, like if you give me like audio files, I'm good. But like when it comes to like you have to pick up pieces of paper and like read through the lore, I'm not good at that. I'm really not good at that. But Jusant, dude, so good. I hope it's referenced because great game, great soundtrack, but I'm not sure how it would. Yeah, no, there's not a lot of like iconic games that have come out recently, kind of like Oxenfree, you know. Nothing really like a tentpole kind of game, you know.
Oh, actually, maybe The Last of Us Part 2 is referenced. Michel likes
maybe.
Last of Us. You did mention the first one in there.
Yeah, definitely. But I think Elden Ring, I think that would be a great reference point. Yeah,
it would be very nice. And now, asking my other question, but I will say as well, the game is delayed to 2025, and the Lost Records Journal would be a very good Easter egg, just to put it out there. We got on Christine's artwork there as well. Maybe you want to put it on the wall somewhere, Nora's room or something, you know, just put it out there. You never know. Put Castrogard in the game, a little bit of reference there, you know. His music's always there, free to use.
Free, emphasis on free.
Free, yeah. I've always said this. Do you know what as well? Like, do you know that Jeff Keighley thing really annoyed me? It's like, do you know how much like money probably Don't Nod had to pay to put their trailer on the game walls? I'm like, put on, like, if you're an independent developer, give me a YouTube link. I'll smack bang it on my YouTube account. It's not big, but I'll give you free exposure. So I hate the fact that it's almost like disgusting practice. You have to pay tons exposure. But if anything, Adam, last question, big one as well.
Yeah.
Does Michel Koch, the man that he is, the creative mind that he is, destroy Velvet Cove by the end of the game?
Okay, so I don't think it will be destroyed. I think it might be abandoned. Like I don't think it will be. Yeah, I think there might be a case of not a time of destruction, but a time of moving on, because this is a story that's meant for a child growing up into adulthood. And I think this is a lot of letting go of your past. I think Velvet Cove is a big part of your past, because there's been a lot of art has been made of like leaving your hometown behind. And I think Michel has picked up on that. And I think there will be a point where it becomes, I think Velvet Cove will almost become like a family pet to you, like that kind of emotion to it, the actual town of Velvet Cove. And there will be a point of just abandoning the town for something. I
have this like weird visual in my head where it's like Frederica and Luke grabbing Michel and be like, stop destroying the town. It's like, we got an IP here. We've got more games to make. It's like, do not destroy. He's just like, yeah, I'm going to destroy the town, because that's what I did to Arcadia Bay. It's like, that was destroyed by a tornado. Let's fire a comet at like Velvet Cove.
Or alien invasion, yeah.
There you go. So yeah, Kangen Kodos style, or the Futurama alien. Someone comes and takes over that town. We're going full 90s references here. Yeah, it's interesting that, because I'm still not sure where they go with the universe, if anything. Because it's like, even Velvet Cove could be part of a bigger America that they start, you know, pocketing in certain places. We don't even know if it's like Swan and Nora and Autumn story is like, and Cat story is centralized to that location, and we have like a a Life is Strange 2 style game where it's a different story, different characters, and then they might pass Velvet Cove, for example, and see it in the background or something in some kind of way, shape, or form. I'm going to sit on the fence here for the moment with Michel destroying the town.
Really, you sitting on the fence?
I just don't know if he's going to do it or not. I've like it. So when you see it as well, when you like tweet about the postcard, he's like, "What could possibly go wrong?" It's like, well, Michel, it's like you could possibly go wrong by destroying this town. We know what your MO is here with like firing tornadoes at towns. He would argue it's Max, but it's definitely not Max. It's definitely a Michel Koch decision of destroying the town there. Okay, I'll tell you what. I think we will keep the town, but I think it will be damaged in some way, shape, or form by something will happen in there. I think the town will be scarred in some way, shape, or form.
Like the water tower might be eviscerated.
I could see that toppling.
Yeah.
I could see that seems to be the early landmark, as you kind of alluded to as well about landmarks. That seems to be an early landmark of Velvet Cove. And I feel like it might topple in some way, shape, or form, if anything, because we do know the fire is burning for the forest at the minute, so we do see some parts. But I think he's going to do something where it's scarred. I think we might revisit the location in some way, shape, or form, like other games have kind of done without universes. But I think we'll keep it for the time being. But he's going to do something which is a little bit like cheeky to it, and it's going to be like, oh no, Michel. He's going to destroy the town. But he's like, no. He's like, I'm just going to leave it emotionally and damagedly scarred, if anything.
Like all of us after Life is Strange 1.
Yeah, that was exactly that. So, like, fingers crossed, if anything. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments as well about Velvet Cove. Obviously, it's very interesting. We're very early doors into it, but I'm kind of curious about what you think about the town, things we'll expect to see, what the Don't Nod Montreal team's talking about, even the images as well from the video. Do let us know what you think about that. But yeah, we'll wrap up here because, as we said as well, it's a small podcast, if anything. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are new here, as always as well, please do consider dropping subscribe on the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share with your friends. Help support a very small channel, helps you keep up to date with all the Lost Record content we produce on here. And also, the Lost Records Journal is available on all podcast services. So you can check us out on Spotify with the video version, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts. We're available on everything. So, and if you are on Spotify, please do give us a rating and also follow us. We've got 42 followers, 7 ratings, which we're very deeply appreciative, and it's very great for that. So this is the last episode of any podcast for the month. If anything, Strangecast will be back in early August. We're hoping to get a special guest on in August. Fingers crossed. We're still working on that. I'm currently got other plans. We might do some other things for the channel as well, so do stay tuned. I think I've got a Life is Strange video I want to create before the end of the month is done, so do stay tuned for that. I know some people don't like Life is Strange at the minute, but if you do want to support me, if anything, please do. It helps, if anything. But yeah, do stay tuned. We'll be back next month with a Strangecast episode, and there's plenty to talk about in there. But until then, guys, take care. See you later. Bye.
Great.